I'm Rob Pasick, and I am the host of this event, and I have created and sponsored it for about the last 30 years or so. I don't know the exact date, but it's been going on for a long time. We've been at Zingerman for 10 years. We have great support, and I want to introduce our people who are doing the sponsorship of this event and make it possible, because again, I'm not a nonprofit. I do create profit, but this event is run as a free event. And what we try to do is let you know what's going on and try to support different groups. This year we've been supporting, Doug, you want to come up and talk about one of our recipient of the sponsorship. This is Doug Armstrong. I don't know if this is working yet, so you can shout out. And Doug is with Camp North Star Reach, so you want to talk about that, Doug? And then the other people can come up, Raymond and David and somebody. Is Mike Cole here yet? Mike's still recovering from the Tigers losing 13-0. How many beers did you drink in that?
It was a tough game to watch, yeah.
Good morning. You'll hear a little more about North Star Reach in a few minutes on the panel, but it's a camp for children with serious health challenges located in Pinckney. Kids attend free of charge, and we get kids out into the woods and into a camp environment that normally would not have an opportunity to do that, with volunteer nurses and doctors and medical facilities that are capable to take care of them. So we appreciate Rob's help with visibility for our organization and certainly for support.
And Doug and Monica, who's sitting in the fourth position there, came to me about 2 months ago and talked about the need for a LeadersConnect that focused on nonprofits. And this is the result of that. Today is having this turnout, and actually we're now talking about making this an ongoing event that we maybe would meet every quarter. And one of the exciting things is that Doug's camp, which is about 40 minutes from here, is a retreat center. So we're thinking in the fall, since you all, anybody stressed out in the audience? Nobody today. So I guess we can't come to get de-stressed at your event. But if we find any stressed people, we're going to have kind of a morning out there where we're going to have a retreat, get to know each other, but also do some de-stressing events and some fun. So next, okay, Daniel, you want to come on up here, and Bill is on camera there, so you want to be right in his view, so this can be broadcast out to the world.
Oh, it's beautiful, beautiful.
Hi, my name is Daniel Clark. I work with Raymond here in Ann Arbor. I work in our public sector group, so that includes governments, nonprofits such as yourselves, and higher education. I know there's a lot of new accounting pronouncements coming out, one with the new not-for-profit reporting model, which is effective for fiscal year 18 and 19, and the new revenue recognition and lease standards. So if there would ever be a need, please feel free to reach out to me or anybody on my team in the office. And again, thank you for having us here. We always enjoy this event, so thank you. Okay. And I just wanted to shout out, we have Chris Singh from the office here, and then we have Adam Williams as well. So.
Yeah, there's some seats up here, Adam.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. And David, want to come on up here? And it's our newest sponsor and the newest business in town. It's trying to get some good stuff going.
So my name is Dave Weininger. I'm the owner of Office Evolution, and what you'll hear us refer to as shared office space, co-working. You might hear us put into that category. But the more I'm in this business, what I'm really realizing what we're doing is we're enabling anywhere from a big company to a small company to come in at a very affordable rate and have a presence in Ann Arbor. We've got a bunch of dedicated offices. We're filling up fast. I'm very proud of that. I also feel very honored to have been able to help North Star Reach, and part of what I'm going to go off here for a second. But we've trying to do quarterly things to help the nonprofits and charities in the area. So we're doing several networking events and things like that, strictly for that purpose. So we've got that in common. I didn't know we had it that much in common, but I've got some information out on the table. The co-working, we're the dedicated office people, not the big wide open space. It's a hard elevator pitch to envision what this actually is, but we have training rooms, and we're really just set up to take care of the small business guy or people traveling in. I would welcome you to come. It takes 5 minutes to walk through. We have several people in the place that are at our location. It's a real community of people, I feel, and I feel that it's getting better. We're all supporting each other. So and I'm really glad to be part of this sport.
So you're part of the resurgence of the South Side, I guess. The South Side is where it's happening.
Yeah.
Downtown is
Yeah.
crowded. I work there too. So yeah. Mike, you want to come over and say hi and talk about Bank of Ann Arbor? And I guess some of these folks are your clients, so that's cool.
That's exciting, you bet.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Really pleased this morning to be here to welcome you all on behalf of my over 250 colleagues that I have at the Bank of Ann Arbor now. So I head up our technology banking group. I work with innovation-based companies around southeastern Michigan with their banking needs and helping their businesses grow. Bank of Ann Arbor is a full-service bank, born and raised here in Ann Arbor. So we're helping people buy homes and build businesses and save money for retirement and do things like that.
You were born and raised here in Ann Arbor.
Born and raised here in Ann Arbor as well. Born in Detroit, raised in Ann Arbor, yes. But one of the things that's really, I think, unique about community banks in general is our commitment to the communities that we serve. And a big part of that is working with the nonprofits in the community. So it's very, very excited this morning to be up here with you all because we love to, help the nonprofits, help the community, and you guys do such a great job of doing that. So thank you. So welcome everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna jump right into things here, and you can direct people up here. There's a few more seats, and if there are other spots, let them know. Now I know there's a lot of people from. How many of you are from the nonprofit sector in the audience? Okay, great. Almost everybody. And how many of you are like director of a nonprofit? Would you please stand up if you are? Okay, director of the nonprofits. Thank you very much. One of the things that we want to do, and we'll do it after the talk, is to give the directors of the nonprofits a chance to introduce themselves, because part of the goal of this event is to help create community. I mean, that's kind of my passion in life is bringing people together and create learning communities where people support and learn from one another. We've done it through LeadersConnect with a mix of education, for-profit, nonprofit, but in identifying the nonprofit or the social service sector, it seems that the resources there are less, and this community doesn't know each other maybe as well as they can. So Monica and Doug and I have talked about the idea of trying to get people to know each other, and rather than competing, I mean, you are competing for the same dollars, but you don't necessarily have to just think that way. You can think about being together and being stronger. And one of my points of view from kind of a life science perspective is that there's no single entity that can exist by itself, and that it has to exist in a community, and the community is interdependent. And so the more we can identify this interdependent community, the more we could do to pursue the mission of making this a better society. And I think that's what you all are about in your particular ways and your particular passions. So that's what we hope will come out of this. I'm interested in starting a small group of about 10 people that would meet monthly. So if any of you afterwards want to talk to me about that or send me an email and would like to be part of a monthly group, that would be fine. And then we're going to repeat this event in September out at North Star Reach and make it more of a half-day event where people come together. We're particularly focusing on the director levels, because I think there are some things for the development directors, but not for the directors per se. So right now, that's where we're trying to start. So I'm just going to let you folks, I'm going to pass the mic rather than try to introduce everybody. Maybe just to start with, say your name and your affiliation, and then we'll start with Elieen on the other end, and you can go into a little bit more detail. Everybody's going to take a few minutes and talk about their particular organization. They're going to talk about some of their challenges, some of their history, and then we're going to have a panel discussion, then open it up to the audience. And we hope to have some opportunity for everybody to network with each other. That's why this is called LeadersConnect. Okay, Doug?
Morning again, Doug Armstrong, CEO of North Star Reach.
Good morning, I'm Bonnie Billups Jr., I'm the Executive Director of Peace Neighborhood Center.
Mel Drumm, President and CEO of the Ann Arbor Hands-On Museum.
Monica Brancheau, Director of Ellie's Place, Ann Arbor. Barbara Niess-May, Executive Director of SafeHouse Center, and if you don't know what SafeHouse Center is, we're an organization that supports over 6,000 survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence every year. I also want to extend deep apologies for being late. My little blind, deaf dog decided this is a good morning for a wander. So, yeah. Great morning. Good morning, I'm
Is that the same one that ate your homework?
yeah. Usually, you may not believe it, but I'm usually not late. Good morning, I'm Elieen Spring. I'm the CEO of Food Gatherers.
So I think you just start out maybe and take a few minutes and talk about your role, and I know you've got a history with that. Let's go from there.
Yeah, it's a little broad of a question, so hopefully I won't ramble on, but happy to be here and hope to meet some of you who I haven't met before. So can you hear me okay in the back?
I'm just going to be
I feel like I
kind
have
of
to stand
unofficial
up.
timekeeper.
So what is the time that you
About
want?
8 minutes each, each to 10 minutes.
Okay. We should make that a little briefer, no one will get a chance to. So Food Gatherers, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary this past November. And I want to sometimes put quotes around celebrate because it's an odd thing, right, to acknowledge the persistence of the issue that we sought to really eliminate, right? So Food Gatherers exist to respond to hunger in our community and to alleviate it, but also address its root causes. And so I would say that we've been better at the alleviation end than we have at the root cause. And many of you know we were started by Zingerman's, Paul and Ari, right early on in their careers, before Zingerman's was wildly successful, created what would become the first food rescue program in Michigan. And from that we spun off of them, became our own 501c3, governed by a board of directors and separate, but entirely grateful and somewhat reliant on their ongoing corporate support, as many of us are in this room. So I always really, when I started this work 25 years ago, and maybe I was incredibly naive, but I really thought of that moment when I was starting. I saw great potential in the work that Food Gatherers could do in concert with sort of the existing safety net in our community. And I really thought by now we really would have made greater progress in addressing hunger and even putting ourselves out of business. But what has happened along the way is that the role of many public programs has been eroding over time, and Food Gatherers has stepped into actually running and administering many federal programs that otherwise would have gone away entirely. And so we're sort of moved into, rather than in partnership, really sort of kind of playing a deeper role. And part of that I'm very proud of, but also that trend is somewhat disturbing because, it's hard to do this kind of work when you're trying to have long-term plans and strategies and outcomes when you are funding every year at ground zero, meaning like with the exception of a couple grants, everything we do, we start from zero every year. And so when you're trying to hey, we serve 170 nonprofit programs. I know Bonnie and certainly Barbara, two of the organizations we work with. So we're trying to provide consistent services at a high volume to 170 partner organizations, and also trying to really get into helping schools address food insecurity from K through 12. Now, in the last several years, there's this emerging issue of college food insecurity. So instead of eliminating hunger, I see myself working with places you wouldn't think of, like the University of Michigan, to have a student pantry. So that trend is very, I'm happy that we're doing that work. I want to serve folks who are in college, who are food insecure, but that trend is disturbing. And so I think that's really one of the fundamental questions those of us in human services face in this work is like, what is our end game, right? Like, how much can the charitable system do that's really going to address these very, very entrenched institutional issues of social equity and poverty. And as proud of as I am of the work that we do, I think it's a real challenge for our community, right? That if we're becoming the social safety net, and I know I saw folks here who are representing other like homeless shelters and places. It's a challenge to do it on the funding model that we are doing it on. And I would also say the other piece of that is we have to try to be the change we want to see in the world, right? So if we're running these social services that themselves are not paying their own staff well enough so that my own staff is food insecure, that's really a challenge. And how do we overcome that? In our community, I think is really interesting work, but perplexing to move on. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
That's great, thank you.
A big shout out to you, Elieen. One thing I want to share when she was talking about serving nonprofit organizations, at SafeHouse Center, I digress a smidge, we provide approximately 10,000 nights of safe shelter for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. Because of what Food Gatherers does, our food budget is $10,000 a year. So can we get a hand for And so we're able to keep people in front of people who are in crisis. And that's what we're there to do. So starting with a smidge about my background, and ironically, I too, SafeHouse is cresting on to its 45th year of supporting survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence in this community. And I've been there for 17 years, and I've been doing this work for 25. And I too thought, there's no way that by the time I turn 50 that this is what I'd still be doing. And now I'm in this moment of, as they say, Lord willing, the creek don't rise, 20 more years at SafeHouse, and I'm realizing the movement started in about 1970. We've been doing the same thing for 50 years. And what we've been doing, which is admirable, is supporting survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence in ways that are helpful to them. What we haven't gotten to in any concrete way is to address assailant behavior and how we're going to better hold assailants accountable and how we're going to try and address it from a prevention standpoint. Getting back to what Elieen was saying, the long game. When we're having to make sure that we're still keeping people in front of people in crisis and fundraising to do that and keeping resources in place to do that. And fortunately, we have a lot of joyful donors who are actually in this room, thank you. Because if we didn't have our joyful donors, we wouldn't be where we're at. But on the flip side, we must start paying attention to these root causes. We must start from where we sit, ending the oppression that causes domestic violence and sexual assault. We must address assailant behavior. We must figure out why it's happening. We talk a lot about assailants do what they do because it's learned behavior. What is the tipping point that they've learned that this is okay? And so I could go on and on and on about it. I'm almost saying ditto to a lot of what Elieen has said. I mean, we recently, actually at SafeHouse Center, we recently raised base pay for our, we call them advocates at SafeHouse, but the more generic term is probably entry level by 20% because we were losing people to other jobs in Ann Arbor, and we need to keep. We invest in a lot of training for the people that we hire. You may wonder, well, why do you need to do that? Well, there isn't a single discipline that requires you to understand sexual assault and domestic violence and how to provide crisis intervention services. You can start naming all the disciplines, and I'd say nope. And so we spend a lot of time training people and onboarding them, and then for them to leave a year later, you know, we all know the cost of turnover. We can't have that, so we needed to do all that we could to raise the pay so that we could keep people. We also seek to have, you know, a bright and energetic and diverse workforce in all the different directions. And that's challenging as well, because I think that when we're talking about very sensitive issues such as sexual assault, domestic violence, having someone in front of you who looks like you, or is, you have some reason to believe that they understand on a greater level other than from what they've learned is really important. So recruitment and engagement of people from all different communities is very important to us. And you know, kind of the bigger picture on nonprofit leadership, I see our primary job is to inspire other people to care about what it is that we're doing. And sometimes that's hard, because you know, there are days I just get in a muck. You know, a couple of days ago, every 5 minutes, I felt like I was on my soapbox. I thought, I gotta stop this, I'm here to inspire. And you know, sometimes soapboxing does help, but I also think that we have an inordinate challenge of inspiring and leading staff, inspiring and leading volunteers. At SafeHouse, we have about 40 staff and 200 volunteers. And staying in touch and people feeling like they're part of something bigger than themselves is really, really important to me, and I think is important as a leader. Also continually inspiring our boards and the people around us. I mean, my hope is that when you walk away today, that you'll say, wow, you know, everybody on that panel are leading really important visionary missions, and I would love to be in a room with them again in a heartbeat. That's something that's, I think, important, because if we're not able to be worked with well or understood well, then I think our mission can get lost. I'm saying things really fast too, and I'm not sure I have anything else, Rob. Am I covering all your bases?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I'd say in closing, I hope you walk away saying, wow, SafeHouse is a wonderful place. And I encourage you to look it up and see what we do. Check us out on social media. But also, you know, we're glad to have our nonprofit partners here. It's actually really humbling to be sitting in front of you, because I know many of you, and I think, well, I could be learning from them too. But at the same time, people who aren't directly engaged in the nonprofit world, if you're here to learn more, that's a great first step, and we would love to engage you further, because we need all the help that I think I can say for me that we need all the help we can get.
So, good morning, everybody. First off, I just want to say what an honor it is to be amongst so many directors. You know, Elieen, I've known for quite some time, back when I was a president of the Junior League and volunteering and helping out start a school program with food gatherers. And so these are women and men who have inspired me for years and really kind of led me to the position I'm at now as the director of Ellie's Place. So for those of you that don't know what Ellie's Place is, so Ellie's Place is a grieving center for children and teens. And you guys might wonder, like, well, why does our community need an Ellie's Place? And one of the things that I learned after I started Ellie's Place are the numbers are really quite shocking. So 1 in 12 kids will experience the death of a parent or a sibling before they're 18. So 1 in 12. So that's basically 2 to 3 kids a class, thousands of kids, just in Washtenaw County. And we actually serve 8 counties. We serve Washtenaw County and 7 surrounding counties. So we don't have any geographical limitations. If families can get to us, even if they're driving from Ohio, they're able to attend. And because we're really one of the only grief centers for children in Southeast Michigan, we do have families that will drive significant distances to come to us. So our vision is that no child will ever grieve alone. And the reason for that, and it kind of going along with some of the things that you guys said, is some of what we do is, you know, at Ellie's Place is reacting obviously to someone's death, but really ultimately what we're doing is preventative. preventative public health work. And so because we know that children who have unresolved grief, that things are going to show up for them either as kids or teens or as adults later on in life. So it could show up as truancy, it can show up with challenges at school, depression, other mental health issues, and potentially even suicide. So all of those things can connect to a child who is grieving and isn't getting the help that they need. And interestingly, we just did a recent look at the families that we're serving. We did like a snapshot like back in August, and about 40% of the families that are currently attending Ellie's Place, they've experienced what we call a traumatic death. So a traumatic death is someone who's died by homicide, suicide, or a drug overdose. So a significant amount of the children that we serve have pretty traumatic experiences for the reasons that they're there. And thankfully, because of the help that they're getting, we know that they're going to be able to be amazing contributing members of the community and get the help that they need. So just to give you a little history about Ellie's Place, so Ellie's Place, like some nonprofits, was really somebody's pain and tragedy that turned into this amazing vision of giving back. So 27 years ago in Lansing, Betsy and Woody Stover had a baby named Ellie, and Ellie died at 11 months and left behind 3 siblings. And Betsy and Woody noticed that the siblings were grieving very differently than they were, and that they needed support. So they did a nationwide search for children's grief centers, and at the time there were none, 27 years ago, except for this place called the Dougie Center, which is out in Portland, Oregon. So the Dougie Center helped start Ellie's Place in Lansing, really just, very, very grassroots in the basement of a church, like no staff, a couple of families, a couple of volunteers. Since then, it's grown to 4 different locations. It came to Ann Arbor 12 years ago, and it was because there was a family actually from the Chelsea area that was driving to the Lansing location, and there were many deaths that happened around that time in Chelsea in particular, and they said, we need to have this here. And so this family really kind of helps bring it to this community. Similarly, in Grand Rapids about 6 years ago, and then we also have a location in Flint that opened up a few years ago. And so kind of going along the same line with what was said about challenges, obviously fundraising is, a big challenge, I think, for all of us. Ellie's Place, because of what we do, we really don't get any grants. We're really individual donor-based or corporate donor-based, and so like you guys said, it's, we have to start over every single year, and there's new nonprofits seemingly starting in Ann Arbor like every year, so the competition for every single dollar just continues to increase year after year after year. I think another big challenge is resources. If most nonprofits aren't staffed the way that a for-profit would be staffed, and so many of us are having to wear many different hats and do many different jobs for like a quarter or half of the pay as a for-profit would be. And so you have the challenges of turnover, and you just have the challenges of burnout, and you have the challenges of just trying to achieve all of the things that the expectations are of the community, of the donors, of the board members, of the people you are providing services for. And that can be a challenge when the resources are quite thin. And I think another challenge that I did not hear you guys say, but I'll speak to, is I think that oftentimes, and there are silos, and I think that there can be silos, like particularly with program and development. So the fundraising part of the nonprofit and the service delivery part of the nonprofit, and really trying to break those down and figure out how to bring those together can be a challenge. And then I think just, this position, and I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, can be a lonely position because, there's just challenges I think that are unique to being an executive director. And sometimes you can't really talk to your board about it, and you really can't talk to your staff about it, so you're just sort of like alone on an island, And I think that's one of the things that I talked to Rob about as to why, here we all are. I mean, there's a bunch of us, so why can't, why not lean on one another? Because I'm sure that there are similar challenges that we're facing regardless of the service that we're providing. So I think that's it. Did I cover everything, Rob? All right, thank you so much.
Wow, what you said. Good morning, everyone. It's both humbling and an honor to be able to share a little bit of the arts and culture side of it. As I listen to my colleagues and the challenges they have and the way they're helping people throughout the community, my job starts to feel a whole lot simpler. But there's still something that in the middle of the night wakes me up like it did last night, and that's worrying about how do we make ends meet, how do we continue to build our programming, how do we continue to reach people, how do we stay relevant? All of those things hit us every single day, and it's just as true in the arts and cultural community. The Hands-On Museum was opened in 1982, and when it was developed by a local Ann Arbor person, Cynthia Yao. And she had an idea about doing this hands-on informal science experience and that I would translate into providing opportunities for kids of all ages to think, maybe I can. We're not saving lives, but we have an opportunity to help people think about how they could improve their lives, how they might have opportunities. And I grew up in a family that was just barely able to make ends meet. My parents came out of the Depression, and my father was in World War II and came back injured, and it was a really tough time. But when I was a kid, my mom saved for about 2.5 years and sent me to a summer camp. And that summer camp took me to a science museum. And what I realized in that whole experience was that, yes indeed, maybe I can, because I was exposed to something new. All of the arts and culture groups, all of these other groups are doing the same thing every single day. In our case at the Hands-On Museum, we realize that it's getting harder and harder every day. We have the benefit that we have a fair amount of earned revenue. So we have a gate fee, we have a admission fee. People pay to come in, they pay to be members. And fortunately, we're the highest attended informal science destination in Michigan. All those people are coming into our community here in Ann Arbor. So there's a huge economic impact that's on the positive side. But at the same time, people want more. Our staff, they're wearing so many hats, they can't do all the work. We lose people to the for-profit community in particular because we can't meet their pay scales. We have young people trying to work here in Ann Arbor that cannot afford to live in Ann Arbor. We don't have the affordable housing that is needed for everyone. Frankly, I don't live in Ann Arbor because I can't afford to live in Ann Arbor today. So we have all those challenges. So at the Hands-On Museum, we've really built everything we've done on the idea of collaboration and community ownership. And I'll give a shout out to my board chair, Michael Cole, who has been one who has really supported us in saying, try new things, try new partnerships, build upon the idea of collaboration and really sharing the community. So we have an overarching philosophy of community ownership and engagement. How many of you have ever been to the Hands-On Museum? There you go. Community engagement in action. How many of you have been to the Leslie Science and Nature Center? There you go again. And I'll throw one more out there. How many of you have been to the Yankee Air Museum? We're working on that one. The Hands-On Museum has launched a program called Unity in Learning, and the idea is to figure out how do we stretch our limited resources? How do we centralize back-of-house functions so we can do more? So we recently merged with the Leslie Science and Nature Center. How many of you knew that? The word's getting out. Also, thanks to my partner, Susan Westhoff. Susan, are you here somewhere? You are planning to attend. Well, she was planning to attend this morning. Thanks to people like Susan Westhoff and her board of trustees, we realized a couple of years ago that we would be better together, that we were able to have a stronger organization by not trying to duplicate development efforts, not trying to duplicate marketing efforts, not trying to duplicate all the finance efforts. It ends up being a really, really difficult chore to do that. And I was finding was I'm out talking to people, as was Susan, they start asking about, for our case, well, do you have any nature environmental programs? We didn't then, but by partnering with Leslie, we now have additional space, we have additional programming, we have a much broader staff, and we can offer more programming. And then later on, we started to partner with the Yankee Air Museum. And way in the back of the room is Kevin Walsh, the executive director of Yankee. Kevin and his team approached us saying they were focusing on doing some major renovations and building a new museum. And instead of repeating and trying to reinvent the wheel, their idea was, would we just partner with a valid, solid, wonderfully experienced educational team? So now we have staff embedded at Yankee. And if you think about our programming, now we have science, technology, engineering, and math. We have nature and the environment, and we have aviation and aerospace and aviation history, all under one umbrella. Now, why would we care about that? Why would that be important to all of you? We look at it as saying there are three primary groups of people we try to reach. First being the general public. We want to engage people in these arts and culture activities. We're able to bring all three of those groups together and say we can cross-promote, we can cross opportunities, we can have cross memberships, all at a lower cost. Second group would really be the schools. We depend upon schools visiting us or us visiting them. Well, if you want to learn about flight, we now have the ability to talk about flight from the wonderful historic aircraft at Yankee or their collection, or through the raptors and bats and creatures that are housed at Leslie as part of our living collection. So schools suddenly have connections that never could make before. And the third group we were trying to reach, and we're doing it better together, was really the idea of donors and influencers. In our world, we realize there's threshold levels where once you reach a level, people start to notice you. And by combining our three organizations programmatically, we suddenly have what I would call a seat at the Thanksgiving table. People are bringing in additional funding, they're listening to us, we're able to do things we couldn't do before. What does that mean to you? It means that it's difficult to figure out ways sometimes to put your egos aside. And if you can figure out a way that you say, it's better together, we're able to put things aside and say, we're collectively working together, you can do so much more. I really, really like the point about it's lonely. It is lonely being in our positions. I now have the wonderful opportunity that Susan Westhoff is right alongside. So all the issues I have, I can share with another ED working at the same level, same thing that we have with Kevin out at Yankee. So you build a partnership, you build collaboration, and I encourage everyone. It's painful, it's not easy, but the outcomes are absolutely amazing, especially as you see your staffs jumping in together and saying, look what we're able to do today, so much more than yesterday. And I'll leave it at that.
So connections, I guess we're talking about, right? Peace has a connection with every one of these organizations to the left, which is we take groups of kids to hands-on museum. We've referred plenty of young people and families who've been in trauma because of loss of homicide and other things to Elle's Place. We have young people or families, mothers who have been victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, who we work closely with SafeHouse. And of course, Food Gatherers is one of our main supporters as far as food for all of our programs. We do over 15,000 meals a year for all of the different programs and services that we do. So connections, we have these connections. We love these organizations to the left. We'll love you too. So peace. Peace will be celebrating 50 years in 2021. So very soon we'll be celebrating 50 years of service. And I'll echo what other people have said. I want to be out of business. I don't really want it to be a need for a Peace Neighborhood Center in this community. We're very lucky that we live in a very giving and wonderful community, but there's a lot of people in this community who have needs, and needs that all of the nonprofit leaders here who are sitting in the audience or sitting on this panel would say that we serve. And we believe in our nonprofits, we believe in what we do, and that's why we get up and we do it every day. This is a life calling. It's not necessarily a job for all of us. I really get up every day, as I believe everybody else does who runs a nonprofit, believing that I'm a part of making a difference and making a change in the community that I live in. So Peace started in 1971 because of the fact that the city had built some public housing, and this main area that we're sitting in right now was not that developed. The whole stretch of Maple Road all the way down to M14 was a dirt road. If you've been here long enough, you know there was an A&P where Dunham's is at, right? So that's old, we're dating ourselves, right? This is a dirt road, and Peace was once a small building that was a church at one point, and people in the community were afraid. They were afraid of each other. There were people who were moving into public housing. This is the far west side, and families who were already established and living there were concerned about what would they do with these public housing people living in the area. But they mobilized and they started talking with each other. And that connection and talking about commonalities became Peace Neighborhood Center back in 1971. So I've been there since 1976 as a kid. So I come to being a nonprofit executive director by being someone who participated in a program, who was served by that program, and along the way learned all the things that I could do being an executive director. And I come up from being a kid, a program assistant, to then being a program coordinator, to moving away and coming back and being the program developer, and then eventually the executive director of Peace Neighborhood Center. Why do we do what we do? Well, for me, this week can talk about that. Yesterday I was in Petoskey. I was in Petoskey picking up a kid who just finished her second year of college up in Petoskey. She's the first generation in her family to go to school. On Saturday, I will be at Ohio Wesleyan outside of Cincinnati, watching a kid graduate with a bachelor's degree. A kid who came from peace programs, who is now changing, all these young people and these families, they're changing the trajectory of their families, right? We're talking about breaking cycles of poverty, giving people hope, giving them the possibilities, assisting them so they have the possibilities to be self-sufficient and great contributing members to this community and place that we live. So I get up every day knowing that those are the kind of things that myself and my coworkers that we do and that we believe in. And when we walk into our building every day, that we believe in the greatness of everybody who's coming into our door, that we're trying to assist them to find their greatness and to assist them to walk that road to self-sufficiency and breaking cycles of poverty, of domestic violence, of trauma. The amount of young people and families who have been victims of some kind of trauma in their life is unbelievable. I mean, my staff and I get together on a weekly, what we call a wraparound meeting, and just to talk through all these stories and figuring out what's our next step to assist this kid or this parent overcome these traumas that have been in their life is a major part of what we do. Did I answer all that?
You did good.
So.
Nothing like having to go last. Hearing from all these very experienced, amazing leaders in the community. North Star Reach is on the opposite end of the spectrum, being that July 1st will be our 3rd anniversary of opening camp. And so we're still relatively new. It took quite a bit to ramp up and get to that point, but actually the service delivery part is still expanding and growing for us. And we, like Monica at Ellie's place, don't provide or don't charge for any of our services. We bring children from all over the Great Lakes area, and the word is getting out, and kids are traveling from other states to come to camp. And I heard Mel mention that, he had a very pivotal experience at camp as a child that helped frame and shape his life. Similarly, I was a camper growing up. I was a staff member at a camp and really believe that many of the foundational experiences I had at camp helped shape my life, and felt very privileged to go into an environment where you meet new people and you get to try new things and you develop community and get exposed to a whole different world. You can actually reinvent yourself in that camp environment. And working as a nurse at University of Michigan for many years and in the transplant center, learned that kids there couldn't attend camp because of the medications that they have to take and because of medical supervision that they needed. And it just struck me like, what do you mean? If anybody needs to go to camp, it's these kids who've been cheated out of their childhood. And so camp becomes a place where they get to come be surrounded in a group by 120 other kids who've gone through the exact same challenges that they've gone through. And it's the first time for many of them in their life where they're looking around at a peer group that can understand what it is that they've experienced. And that becomes a really powerful opportunity to help them grow, to help them move past perceived limitations, and to really provide medical, physical, emotional safety and push them to try things that they probably thought they never could achieve. And once you unlock that for a child, then the sky's the limit, because then they take those same tools back into their life at home and begin trying new things with a new sense of confidence, a new ability to make friends, autonomy, independence, all of the great things that camp offers all kids that go, but especially is important for these kids. I fell into the camp world and into actually nonprofit world sort of accidentally. I heard from this patient that they couldn't go to camp. I got together with another nurse colleague and said, we've got to fix this. And so we didn't know what we were doing, but we grabbed a bunch of kids in 1998 and took them to camp for a week. We just rented space at a YMCA camp and made it happen. We did whatever was required. We got volunteers. We created a medical center at camp, and with a trailer full of equipment, and camp grew. And as it grew, we also exposed what are the limitations or the challenges of sort of trying to shoehorn this medically complex program into a facility that isn't really designed for that. And that led to dreaming big of, boy, if we could just create our own facility, design it from the ground up, have it really serve the program we want to offer rather than trying to fit our program into the building that happens to be available, have it close to a major medical center, and through lots of great twists of fate, discovered the University of Michigan had some property out on Patterson Lake in Pinckney that was an old camp, had been abandoned for 25 years. They were going to sell, and the timing was just right where through some conversations and some proposals and planning, they walked away from that real estate deal and made that available to us. And so I dreamed big, and suddenly there was an opportunity sitting in front of me that said, hey, if you want to have a camp, here's the property, make it happen. And so I didn't know the first thing about running a nonprofit, and have learned through great mentorships and talking to leaders who've blazed paths before me, and fueled by a passion that camp was important. And so we're really excited to be entering what will be now our 4th summer of serving kids and their families. We run family camps in the spring. In fact, our 2nd session starts tonight and runs this weekend. And we do that in the spring and the fall. And then we run summer camp sessions, and we serve kids with epilepsy and kids with brain tumors and cancer, and kids who've had organ transplants, and kids with congenital heart disease, and kids with sickle cell anemia and other blood disorders. And we're continually growing those populations and serving the kids and their families. With regard to all of the challenges that have been mentioned, yes, and just in building a little bit on Mel and Monica talking about paying staff and losing good staff, and just thinking about what it takes to run any business, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit. You really need inspired people who are excited to come to work. You need people that are safe in that environment and that have the resources and the freedom to innovate and to think big and experiment and take risks. And yet we're in an environment where we're going to garage sales to try to find office furniture and putting Band-Aids on computers that have been passed down to, twice before they got to us. And really struggling for the resources just to make the daily job happen. It doesn't leave a lot of bandwidth to innovate and to think bigger. And the hope is, as we've been talking with Rob, is that by getting nonprofit leaders together, we can help with some of that loneliness that Monica talked about, and help people realize, just like we do at camp, that there is a cohort of people out there that have those same challenges and are walking down that same path, and that the strength in that community that we could bring together could help solve some of those problems. And sure, we're competing on the fundraising side, but there are so many other sides where we can share best practices and where we can possibly work together and solve problems, and we can bring in content experts that benefit all of us instead of each of us trying to create all of those things singularly. So I'm excited to see so many leaders here, and hope that we can build on this and continue.
Fantastic, thank you, Doug. And Doug and I have known each other probably for a decade or so, and he said he had this dream and it's happening, and that's one of the gratifying pieces of this, is to see how many of you have been able to take a dream, and I think we were all inspired in 1963 by the I Have a Dream speech. I was on a ladder painting a house, I think that summer, when I listened to it, and I climbed a few rings up on the ladder because I was so excited. And I think these problems have persisted. I think you're right, I mean, a few of you, about needing for prevention. I went to school in a clinical psychology program that was supposed to prevent mental illness and mental health. Then we got to look at how complex that problem is. I remember growing up on my nice middle-class street in Oak Park, Michigan, and I went to Ferndale High School. And now I look at it, like, well, down the street there was this guy who robbed a bank, and there was somebody else who the family was put in their garage at Christmas time because the father was drunk. And there was somebody else who was trying to leave their family, and the woman got as far as the porch and called the taxi, but had no money to go anywhere because she didn't know what to do in 1956 or whatever. So all these problems have been out there, and I could go right down the street and find people who couldn't survive through enough food, and on, people who've lost siblings. So all these problems are out there, and these people up here are trying to serve these. We're also trying to find ways to prevent these, and I know there's a lot of activity in the university that is working toward that. There's some people here that are representing trying to prevent suicide, for example, and prevent domestic abuse. So I would just like to ask those people that, again, if you stand up, if you are an executive director or equivalent of a nonprofit, would you stand up one more time? Okay, would you kind of just go against this wall over here? Now we're going to have and I promise, only a few of you will be shot. Okay.
That's mine.
Yeah. Now one of these people is going to survive the Game of Thrones, and the rest will. But this is going to take a minute, but I just want to go down the line and pass the mic and let you each introduce each other, just like a minute, and what your organization, what your mission is, who you are, what your organization is, what your mission is, just to show the variety right in this room.
Hi everyone, I'm Sylvia Van Meerten. You guys have heard me speak because I also run a for-profit, but the nonprofit I run is called Chasing Summer, and we run a camp for kids with autism called Camp Tall Tree. We also offer trainings and workshops about autism for organizations that are youth-oriented or technology-oriented or arts-oriented, where many people with autism find employment, because those are the fields that have decided that the content is more important than the social nuance. Thank you.
And by the way, if you want to mention your Cletus challenge too, that's fine. Unless you can't think of it.
I don't have
Well, no, we're all cool. I don't have to go home this weekend and write 3 grants and worry about the next payroll and all those things. Hi, I'm Deb Pollack. I'm the director of the Arts Alliance and Art Train, and I also serve on Creative Many Michigan's board. The Arts Alliance is probably the most recognized here in this community. My Art Train work is a national organization. So my colleague Val did a great job talking about what some of our challenges are. But one of the things that I think is frequently, perhaps many of you understand and have participated, and your children have participated in arts and cultural events and programs. Where we get a little bit disconnected sometimes, we know in our world that every one of these organizations up here, whether it's health, whether it's social services, human services, education, all of this stuff, we interconnect with all of those and provide all sorts of opportunities for people to find themselves, to express themselves, to deal with trauma, and so on and so forth. But so frequently, we as a community, and I mean this is the big community, the they out there, think of us as a place you go to just have an experience. And it's so much broader, it's so much deeper than that. And I know that many of us that do this work would really hope that interconnectivity is something that you all value and would like to learn more about. So anyway, that's my minute and a half. So thank you. I have more, but I won't say it now.
Hi, I'm Dani. I'm the co-director of the Ann Arbor Health Techs. Ann Arbor Health Techs were founded by Diane and 3 other women like 4 years ago, so we are pretty young. We are volunteers run organization with the mission being to innovate healthcare, so within our community. So if there's healthcare related issues, challenges, we want to connect our community, we want to bring people together from different walks of life so that they can sit together and find solutions for those challenges. And if I say healthcare, I mean, it doesn't need to be like the new cancer drug. Obviously, that's not the case. It's also like access to food, getting to the hospital in time, finding a feeding solution for your kid that needs feeding, artificial feeding. So I think the biggest challenge is funding, as everybody else was mentioning, but also finding partners that we can connect with and then find a common goal that we can work to. So our biggest event is an annual hackathon. It's 48 hours of bringing people together, being them nurses, engineers, healthcare people, everybody who's having any interest in healthcare problems, and we bring them together and they find unique solutions for very unique problems, and this is really where our passion lies. So if you are interested to learn more about this, you can talk to me afterwards, or you can go to our website. It's annaborhealthtechs.org. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eileen Freed. I'm the Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of Greater Ann Arbor. And primarily through our major annual community campaign, we foster Jewish communal life and help the vulnerable in our community here in Ann Arbor, as well as in Israel and around the world. We serve as a convener for the Jewish community on a range of different issues. Unfortunately, right now, one of our largest challenges is actually security. We'd much rather be spending our money on creating transformative Jewish experiences, which we also do. But unfortunately, we have to start looking beyond that and look at the safety of our community. A lot of what we do is also around partnering with the broader community, and that's an area that we're hoping to focus more on. And I guess that's it.
Hello friends, my name is Jeanette Stosky, and I'm the Executive Director for the Association of Outdoor Recreation and Education, otherwise known as AOR, not EOR, but AOR. It's a national nonprofit, and I serve college, university, military, and municipalities that provide outdoor recreation and education for 18 to 24-year-olds. So my members are the facilitators and the academics that are trying to connect young people, and Doug articulated a lot of these things at a critical time in their life. So judgment, decision-making, off technology, community building, self-concept leadership through outdoor classrooms. And I'm talking about hiking, climbing, caving, dog sledding, all of the outdoor pursuits. Let's see here. So currently, we're kind of in a transition, 30th year, and with the new strategic plan, we're focusing on advocacy, career development, professional development, and networking to advance my members. My members are the ones who are facilitating those programs around the United States. Our biggest challenge right now is in the outdoor space, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a very white, very affluent space, and so we need to, again, as I think Mel, you talked about, we need to have people who recognize our leaders and who they are, and it has to be people who don't look like who's portrayed in the media and that sort of stuff, and also access to public lands. So again, it's with extractive industries and things like that, how do we connect these young people so that they can have a positive experience in the mountains and on the rivers, who can then become civic advocates when they come back to their spaces and protect the land and be connected to that environment. So that's how that works. And I am that tall, because I know you're all thinking it, so I'll just say it out loud.
Hello, my name is Monica Swartout-Bibo, and I have a cold, so excuse me. I am the newly appointed, and I mean, as in I haven't even started yet, my first day is on Monday, Artistic and Executive Director of the Carytown Concert House. I am so excited about this position, which is why I'm here today, ready to learn. I come from having been on the voice faculty at Eastern Michigan University, but I have a 23-year relationship with the Carytown Concert House as a performer, a teacher, a presenter, and a mentor. So I am extremely passionate, ready to learn, and I'll have a lot more to contribute in the fall.
Hello, my name is Leslie Raymond. I direct the Ann Arbor Film Festival. We are a 57-year-old internationally renowned experimental film festival. We were recently awarded by USA Today, it's actually a Reader's Choice, the best film festival in North America. And it's kind of interesting, we are an experimental film festival. And I would say that is how we are distinguished from all the other film festivals, most of them, especially all the others here in Ann Arbor. What does that mean, experimental film festival? I think the easiest orientation of that is if you're coming to, actually, how many people have actually come to the Ann Arbor Film Festival? Okay, so a lot of people know. If you're coming to our festival, I try to tell folks who've never been there before that instead of thinking about going to the Cineplex and going to see the movies there, that you're actually going to the art museum, and the type of work that we show is much more close to something you would see there in terms of an individual artist creating an individual artwork. And I would say right now, I feel like one of our largest challenges is, even though we're 57 years old, there are a lot of people in our community here in Ann Arbor who don't know who we are and get us mixed up with other film festivals. And so we're, as a tiny little nonprofit organization, constantly trying to make our identity known and clear to those in the community.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Bunch. I am that tall, too. Well, what I do is completely different, I think, than anything we've heard about so far this morning. I'm the founder and director of the Michigan Municipal Association for Utility Issues. Our role is to help local governments in Michigan achieve their sustainability and energy goals by giving them a collective voice, helping them work together, and giving them technical support in their relationships with utilities and in utility rate setting and regulation processes. So as the founder, I have the challenge of a nonprofit entrepreneur, a little bit of loneliness from day to day, a challenge in mobilizing the people I serve who desperately need what we do but have no bandwidth to pay attention, really learn and get engaged. So that's a couple starters right there.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Thornburg. I'm the Executive Director of Friends Indeed and Circles Washtenaw County. Friends Indeed has been serving low-income families in this community for 36 years with emergency assistance and free furniture. But I really want to focus on something that was said by our panel about root causes. Through Circles Washtenaw County, Friends Indeed has stepped out and said we've been tolerating poverty in this country for too long. and it's time to make a difference. And we launched this national model of Circles Washtenaw County, which is relationship-based, multi-generational. And I'd love to talk to you, but it takes like an hour and a half to tell you all about it, so I won't. I'm gonna pass it around in just a second, except I'm gonna say, have the 9 o'clock commitment. It's really hard to sneak out when they put you in front, so now I'm gonna go.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Weathers. I'm the Executive Director of SOS Community Services. SOS is going to be 50 years old in 2020, so along with many others, we've been around for a long time doing some good work. SOS, the mission of SOS is to promote housing stability and family self-sufficiency through collaboration, care, and respect. In that work, we have a number of different programs related to housing stability, including family shelter, as well as running a program for rapid rehousing, which is a housing model that came into the community about 5 years ago. So we support families through those venues, but we also have some children's programming, as well as running a resource center in our downtown Ypsilanti location that partners heavily with food gatherers to provide a high-capacity food program. So in the work, we partner with many of the people that you've heard from today, and it's challenging work, fun. I mean, so many challenges that have already been mentioned, whether it be supporting the staff who are there doing the work, trying to make sure that they are not, eligible for our services, and also just always looking for funding. And this crowd looks like there would be some potential board members. We're always looking for board members as well. So if you're interested in serving in a board capacity, we'd love to talk to you. Thanks.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Tilly Shamus. I'm the Executive Director of Hillel at the University of Michigan. We predominantly serve the needs of Jewish students on campus. We've been around for 93 years. I have not. I've been around for about 10 of those, Executive Director for 7. We have about 50 student groups that work within our Hillel. They're all student-led, and our staff works on supporting them in their leadership development and bringing programs that then serve the Jewish community on campus. And those 50 student groups really work towards fulfilling our mission, which is to enrich the lives of Jewish students so that they may enrich the Jewish people and the world. So it's really such a pleasure to hear from our panelists, in particular, Peace Neighborhood and Food Gatherers, because several of those groups have either volunteered at Peace Neighborhood or through Challah for Hunger raised money for food gatherers, and through Midnight Run, which is another one of our groups, actually brought food to food gatherers from our Hillel. So it's nice to see our Jewish students living out their Jewish values and putting that into action in impacting the world, and in particular our community in Ann Arbor. So thanks so much for your words.
Thank you.
By the way, I don't mind you having phones out as long as you're posting nice social media stuff.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pat Reinvelt, and I'm the Executive Director at the National Network of Depression Centers. So we are an organization that is comprised of 25 academic medical centers that are focused on researching and finding new treatments to improve the lives of people dealing with mental illness, specifically depression, bipolar disorder, and related mood disorders. There is such a need for research in this area. We're about 10 years old, and you can think of us sort of analogous to the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, although they're 25 or 30 of us, we're about 10 years old. Our biggest need, like we heard from a lot of people, is funding. We could fund research with every penny that we could get, and finding those pennies is one of the things that we are focused on greatly. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Amanda Caldwell, and I'm on the board of a brand new nonprofit called the SHARE Initiative, which I helped create with the founder, Devon Johnson. So what we do is we work to combat homelessness, and we try to give them the tools to help them succeed. So this entails counseling, rehabilitation for substance abuse, and working to expunge records and help with obtaining jobs. So that's the kind of stuff that we do, and we're just getting our feet off the ground right now. So again, funding is always an issue there, but we're really excited and looking forward to helping out the community.
Damon Johnson.
Share Initiative. So our main mission is to empower people by taking a holistic approach to the treatment of homelessness, not only as an epidemic, but if you will, as an illness, and finding the underlying issues. As I digress a bit, I want to give like a big shout out to one of my idols. You didn't know what was happening, Monica. But yeah, me and Monica, we go way back. So I was inspired to actually dive into the nonprofit sector from working with you years ago. I retired military in 2012, so we started a company, A2 Fitness, and if that wasn't enough, I said, well, let's create something else through Amanda's community outreach program. So a lot of our challenges, I think, have been answered by coming here today. I appreciate the panel, I appreciate you, Dr. Rob, and I appreciate everybody else up here. I just appreciate everybody. so thanks, and I appreciate everything, again.
I'm Kristen Sample. I'm the manager of the Washtenaw-Alleno Club. Our primary purpose is to provide a safe and sober environment for people seeking recovery from drug addiction, alcoholism, the family members affected by those, gambling, other issues like that. We're totally separate from those fellowships as they are anonymous fellowships, but we provide a home for people wanting to start those kinds of meetings. We have a lot of sober events. This year we celebrate our 50th anniversary, so there will be a big bash in September for that. And we also have the Summer of 1969 party to celebrate our founding year. Our biggest problem, or challenge I should say, is engagement, because so much of what we do relies on the volunteers and the members of our organization that at times just, have their own lives and don't really want to spend hours and hours helping and doing certain things. So besides myself, we only have usually 5 to 7 staff members who are part-time and work our concessions counter. We don't, have paid staff for a lot of what we do, and so I can relate to the loneliness of the job at times when we don't have the volunteers to help out with our events or help out with fundraising, because we are fully self-supporting. Part of our philosophy is that we want to be self-responsible, so we don't get grants, we don't get outside funding from corporations. It's strictly through the people who buy memberships at our club and kick in a little extra money for us, and the fundraising projects we put on throughout the year that, again, is just primarily for our members. So those are our biggest challenges, and it's nice to be here and to get to hear from so many other nonprofits, so thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Walsh. I'm the Executive Director of the Yankee Air Museum. I'm also the co-founder of the Thunder Over Michigan Air Show. The Yankee Air Museum was formed in 1981. It's 38 years old now. And I'm very proud to represent the 250 volunteers that make it click. We have 11 staff, but as most of you know, it's the volunteerism that really drives the organization. 65 to 70% of our volunteers are veterans. In that is almost a community and an area for veterans to gather and to work together. It's something that's very notable. When the air show rolls around, that's over 700 volunteers that we manage at one of the marquee events here in Southeast Michigan. I could tell you a lot about our organization.
When is it, Kevin?
I'm sorry?
When is it?
Thunder Over Michigan is August 3-4 this year.
Okay.
Yeah. The museum, for those that don't know, although it was founded in 1981, suffered a devastating fire in 2004. Where the building and 35,000 artifacts were lost. To show the resilience of our organization, it would have been a lot easier to sell the 3 planes that were pulled from the burning building that night. We didn't. The thousands of members teamed together. The community, our supporters, and have helped us get back on our feet. One of the key things that we've been able to do in our recovery process is purchase 144,000 square feet of the original bomber plant from World War II at Willow Run. Now, the reason for purchasing that was not just history, but also the cultural change that occurred there. Of course, that was the introduction of women in the industrial workplace and the home of Rosie the Riveter. And we embrace these stories, and we also, through our artifacts, it's not just a bunch of old airplanes and a bunch of old things. We find the stories about the visionaries, we find the stories about the cultural change, and we remember the sacrifices that our veterans have made for our country. I intentionally sat at the back of the room. I have to excuse myself, so I have a donor meeting to get to, so a lot of people will relate to that. But appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about the Yankee Air Museum. And I'm going to sneak out now so I'm not late for that, because funding is one of our biggest problems. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Dunbar. I'm the Executive Director of the Boy Choir of Ann Arbor, which is sort of what it sounds like. It is a choir of all boys, but we actually cover all of Washtenaw County. We have kids come from Ypsi, Manchester, Dexter, Saline. We were founded in 1986, the first time they renovated the Michigan Theater. You might remember, they've recently done it, but they did it back 30 years ago. There was a big event and they needed a boy choir for the piece that they wanted to do. And that was started, and then the kids all said, this is amazing, we should do this. So we became a nonprofit, and this is our 32nd year. Our mission is twofold. One is to provide outstanding choral performances for our community. The sound of a young boy soprano is a very unique sound, but we actually go 8 to 18, so we sing full 4-part music with all boys. But the second part of our mission, which is really important to me, is to nurture the social and emotional development of these boys. We give them an environment where a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old can all be together, and it's okay that some piece of music is beautiful. You might have seen, there was a social media thing yesterday about a little kid who said wow at the end of a Mozart piece. It was like, and it was just like an amazing thing. That's what we try and do all the time, to give boys a safe place where they can say, wow, that piece of music moved me. And I think through music, working together, they learn leadership and teamwork. They get to experience, they get to go to the Hands-On Museum when we have summer camp. They get to travel, they get to perform for people. So it's twofold. We're bringing an art form to our community, but we're also nurturing this group of boys, which I think is a really valuable thing to do for a lot of reasons that have been addressed here. Thank you all so much for being here and for all the work you do. It's really invigorating to feel like part of a peer group. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Elliot Holloway. I'm a co-founder of the Center for Digital Curricula in the College of Engineering. We're working with K-12 schools, and primarily elementary schools. Teachers, they're putting all kinds of stuff on their backs, right? We're asking them to do all kinds of things. The textbooks are going out, the computers are coming in, teachers saying, what are we supposed to do with these things? And what we're doing, we're working with the Michigan Department of Education to try and develop curriculum, to drive professional development programs, so that the teachers can figure out what to do with these technologies, so the kids can benefit from them. If we don't do this, a lot of my colleagues are developing technology, are trying to get rid of teachers. That's their goal. And I fight with them all the time, because that's not the right idea. So, working with teachers, K-12, particularly elementary schools. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jen Spittler. I'm the Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Washtenaw County. And we serve kids between the ages of 7 and 18 in one-to-one mentoring relationships. About 400 kids each year here in our community. One of the things that for me, that was important to be here this morning is kind of a continuation of a conversation that started at the United Way a couple of months ago. They had a forum for nonprofits to provide feedback. And I happened to be at a table with 3 other folks who are running programs that were different than what we do, and I'm connected to Rhonda and different people through WACY, which is the Washtenaw Alliance for Children and Youth, so people who do similar work to what we do, but we're not connected to that larger nonprofit community to think about how can we partner, what are the other programs we can offer to kids and the resources that we can offer to families. And so I think that this is really important to get the leaders together to learn more, but also to find those connections so that we can find synergies that will allow, all of the young people and adults in our community to really fulfill themselves. And I think that this is a great start to that.
All right. I'm the last and the smallest. I'm not actually the smallest, but my charities are the smallest. I have 2 small nonprofits that I founded and run here in the county. One is for Friends of the Washtenaw County Veteran Treatment Court. That's a specialty court here in downtown that specializes in serving veterans who are justice involved. I also run their mentor program, so if you know any veterans who want to serve as mentors to vets that have a little bit of difficulty, let me know. I handle the training and supervise all that. And it's a very small charity. We've had some help from some local fundraising. And then the other one is for Veterans Community Action Team 9. That's something that I chair for the state of Michigan. There's 10 of them throughout the state. We have this county and the 5 surrounding counties serving about 50,000 veterans, and we try and coordinate services and enhance connectivity between service providers for all of the veteran serving agencies in those counties. They're very small, as I said. I run them all with volunteers only, and I pay all of the administrative costs out of my own pocket, so it's really, really lean, but I'm able to say that 100% of anything that's donated goes directly to benefit the veterans. So, I'm interested in learning all about this. Again, I feel like I'm a little mouse in a stable full of horses, but I'm really learning a lot. Also,
the only time you ever felt that way.
That's right, exactly. Not the smallest. I worked with Elliot starting back in the 1900s, so if you want a guy who has impact in education, this is your guy. So.
All right, so if you can pass the mic back up, I want to give everybody a hand. I think that one of the things I want to do is, in terms of my own effort to volunteer, is Steve Angerman still here, and Bob Gunzel? Steve, come on up for a minute, Steve. Is Bob here still, or is Bob the, where's Bob? Bob's hiding back there. Bob, if you could stand up too for just a second. I want to give Bob Gunzel a big shout out. Bob's helped us organize this today, and Bob was the county administrator for 150 years or something like that.
A long time.
Yeah, a long time. And I know Bob has been very influential in terms of getting support to these organizations, and also this idea of collaboration. So Steve and I are going to offer a seminar, a monthly seminar for up to 10 directors, executive directors. And we're going to do this as a volunteer basis. We're talking about whether we should do it free or charge something, because what does it mean to people to pay or not pay? But we want to offer it, make it happen. Where's Steve? There you go. So Steve, you maybe want to come up and talk about it, because Steve is a businessman who also is going to talk about this from the perspective of businesses supporting nonprofit.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. And thanks to this great panel. Some of you I've met before and worked with a little bit. So my background is on the profit side. I was one of the co-founders of Running Fit here in Ann Arbor. And so I worked in the retail business for over 35 years. And I joke as founder of that, we were actually a nonprofit for a couple of years. Not intentionally, but one of the things that I've noticed, I've worked with Rob as a client during several group sessions that I worked with, where we had other business owners, or we had people that were leaders, and it was really helped me. And one of the things I noticed is I've listened to the nonprofits today, but just working with them, because Running Fit, we worked with over probably 25, 30 different nonprofits over the years. We like one of the terms I heard was engagement. So we like to be engaged with the community. That was part of our platform to grow our business. And one of the ways we did it was by working with different agencies. But one of the things that I was thinking about is the needs that I heard here. And a lot of those needs are the same needs that I felt as a young entrepreneur growing and starting a business. Sort of a little bit of a loneliness, kind of feeling out on an island sometime. But one thing I recognize is in the for-profit, in the business world, there seem to be a lot more opportunities, a lot more resources, a lot more networking out there where we helped each other. My simple analogy is, being that I was in a retail business, so here I was in downtown and in shopping centers and such around Michigan. Well, I was surrounded by our competitors. So it's natural to kind of work together. And so there's so many things that are out there to support people that are in business and organizations and industries like that. But I don't really see that on this side of the fence. So I think that's something that Rob and I talked about, something where I think we could help. So we're excited about that. The other little sort of sidebar that Running Fit did is besides selling shoes to people all around Michigan, we put on a lot of events, and we started putting on these running events, and that grew into a business in itself. And what we did with, and a lot of those we connected with, that's where we would find partners that we would benefit. But what I learned on that side too was all the people that work those events. If you think, like the Dexter Ann Arbor one that's gonna happen here, to put on an event like that, you need tons of volunteers. So I spent a lot of my career not only having employees that I had to hire and work with and train and pay and keep happy so they didn't go somewhere else, but I've worked with tons of volunteers that would make these races happen. A Dexter Ann Arbor race is probably 250 to 300 volunteers to make that happen. So I've had a lot of experience that way, so that I feel I could kind of share that. And then a lot of experience creating the partnership between a for-profit business and a nonprofit organization, so that it really benefits both. So it really gets into what are the needs, how can we help one another work together. So that's what we look forward to doing, and that's where Rob invited me to kind of help maybe facilitate some groups so we can get in there. And that old expression of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so that's what we want to do. We want to go far. So thank you for your time.
I'm going to give the opportunity back to folks. And Elieen, I see you brought Good to Great in the social sector with you. So I'd like you to comment on that, because I think that's a really amazing piece of work. I don't know how original it is, but it really, and basically the whole idea that I'm faced with is like, I want to give my time and money to all of these. So, and I think this is what faces individuals. On the one hand, is like, how do you figure out how to do that? Because they're all, you can't say one is better than the other. They're all great. And on the other hand, all you've got is time or money. And maybe most people don't feel like they have either these days, so it's a big challenge. But then how do you all reach out to do that? I mean, it seems to me like that would be such a difficult task. So Elieen, could you maybe comment on why you brought that book and anything else you want to just react to? And then we'll just pass the mic and any reactions that you may have.
So he's referring to Jim Collins' book, and it's a monograph actually, and it's Good to Great, and I think it's a really helpful tool for both staff and board and volunteers to kind of think about not so much I mean, it's kind of interesting that we get stuck in this nonprofit versus not for-profit or whatever, .com versus .org, and I honestly think that a new generation of younger people are going to be stretching those distinctions because they want to work in a place that they make money at that does social good, right? And so our economy is going to have to adjust to that and keep it going. So this is really about organizations and how you make good culture happen so that the right things happen in every organization regardless of your mission. So I do think it's a very helpful tool. I think the part that I find really interesting in it is that it talks about different kinds of leadership, executive versus legislative, and there's this notion like, CEO, like, this will be done, right? We declare that, this is gonna happen, and how really organizations work who are effective in this arena of social change is through a more diffuse leadership, getting people to follow you when there's no obligation that they do so, and there's no monetary necessarily thing. So I think that's very helpful. I guess we sort of are running out of time. And one of the things,
wrap up comment.
yeah, that it strikes me too in hearing the diversity of these organizations, everyone talking, that I think it's really helpful again to not just say like, I'm a nonprofit, but think about what is the piece of the social impact you're trying to have, and how does it fit into a much broader context of what's available in the community. Because to think about not so much what am I doing, but what needs to be done, and how am I in this organization and collectively filling it. Because it's really hard, when I know Jillian was here from Community Foundation, and who funds a lot of organizations, and I have to say, I haven't heard of 30% of you. And it's like we keep proliferating and we're all gonna be in the same place unless we're really thinking about how we're, coordinating our community services in a meaningful, sustainable way that serves the people we're trying to serve, not so much our organizations.
Thank you. I would have brought my book if we were doing a book. Is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and I read everything it seems that she writes. And one thing I would want to point out is that while there is a distinction, there's a tax distinction of leadership in nonprofits, leadership in for-profits. The reality is that we need to embody the same qualities as leaders. And we can talk a lot about, well, this is unique to nonprofits, this is unique to for-profit, but the reality is that we all need to be leaders, and we all need to inspire others, and we all need to say what we're going to do and do what we're going to say. And I think Steve, I was really struck by what you were saying. On the one hand, there are these things. On the other hand, there's these differences and these similarities, and we all run very complex systems, and I think that's important to point out as well. Also, when I hear people talking about, well, I fell into this, it's part of me is like, yeah, me too, but it's just not that easy, because it just goes both ways, and I want people to know that if you've ever thought about working for a nonprofit, you aren't now, you certainly can. And if it's not ringing your bell running a nonprofit, it's okay to go somewhere else too. I mean, we all have skills that are transferable and can happen elsewhere. Also, I'm apologizing in advance. I had the timing on, I thought we were ending at 8:30, and so it's supposed to be somewhere at 9, and so I'm gonna literally have to walk out the door when we wrap up, and I apologize, but again, a donor. So I was texting saying I'm running late, but that seems to be my theme today. Thank you.
I don't have a book to talk about. I could talk about well, actually, speaking of books, Rob Pasick just put out a book, and I have 4 teenagers, so I'm in the midst of looking at colleges and college books, and yeah, that's my everyday life, not my professional life. But I do think that, this forum is a great opportunity for all of us as leaders to connect and figure out how we can support one another. A great example of this is right now, Ellie's Place is building our own building, and we're about to move, and we're looking at creating kind of a facilities manual and kind of an operational procedures manual, and we're like, why are we like doing this with a blank piece of paper? There's all of these other nonprofits in the community that own buildings, and maybe they have something that we can use, and we have reached out to a few, but I mean that's just one example of many of where we can share our wealth of knowledge and support one another in ways that where we're not having to recreate things from new or restart a new wheel. So that's it.
I really heard 3 words today: inspiration, engagement, and impact. And impressed by everyone here that's been involved. I encourage everyone, whether you are a board member, a visitor, a user, or a community member, participate when you can. Think about that level of engagement that you're out there. I'm looking around the room, I see a number of our trustees and former trustees. I saw that show of hands that people had visited our organizations. Those are all levels of engagement. We have people that are donors year after year after year, people that are donors every 5 years. But no matter where I go, whatever organization you're with, if you can tell someone who walks up to you, where should I go? Where should I get involved? And you offer support to one of these nonprofits, it'll make a huge difference for all of us. So I always underscore the word engagement. Thank everyone in this room for what you do today and for what we'll be doing tomorrow.
I don't know what to say. Let me think. And I'm at Wells first, but I guess I would say this. Years ago, we realized that a nonprofit is a business, and that we're a nonprofit business, and that we're responsible to not only the people we serve, but to our donors, to our mission, to all those things are all interconnected. And I think sometimes it's hard to get the greater population to understand that nonprofits work with same sort of business practices that for-profit businesses do, and that we have these responsibilities. And I think it's important for us as nonprofit leaders to get together and talk about those things and assist each other through those that minefield of business stuff. Because a lot of us didn't come to these roles with a business degree. We came first initially wanting to bring about a change and have had to run businesses. So I think this will be a great forum for those kind of conversations.
Yeah, I think building on that, it's absolutely true. You have to bring your marketing skills and your finance skills and your fundraising skills and your HR skills, and if you're a small organization, it's probably one person doing all of that. And IT. And right, all of those support functions, and so it contributes to that feeling a little lonely when you're facing all of those challenges simultaneously. I think speaking to engagement and impact, it's certainly something that we see at camp, and it's really easy for people to see that we're creating an amazing and measurable impact for the kids that come to camp. I think what's we've also discovered, and I know Sylvia can connect to, is there's an amazing impact experienced by the volunteers who come and are a part of that process. And like so many organizations, we rely on those volunteers, and just encourage you to think about volunteering yourself, to think about certainly for our camp program, anyone over the age of 19 who wants to come and have a really transformational experience at the same time that you're transforming the lives of a young person in need. It really becomes a win-win, because everybody goes home walking taller and feeling better about service. So, I echo Steve's sentiment that I'm humbled just by all of the amazing things that go on in this community, and that everybody is so passionate about in service of others. And it really inspires me and makes me feel good about the community in which I live and work, and appreciative of everybody's efforts to just improve the human condition.
Imagine for a minute, Doug, this community without nonprofits. Just think for a second, what would this look like? You know, it would probably look like some of these gated communities that we see around the country springing up. I don't know how much volunteer there is there, but my sense is that this is what makes our community rich. And it's also this whole thing I heard about, that we're only as rich as our poorest neighbor, you know, and so and we're only as strong as our weakest institution. So we really have to work on these connections. And I think, just to come to, I'll give you an example of a connection. So I teach a course at the business school, and I have some football players in the class, and they don't have any time to do internships because they're training all the time. Well, Doug said that he has a lot of African-American kids with sickle cell, and they need volunteers that are African-American males. So bingo, you know, that's how I think, is that I put Doug in connection to Claiborne Green, who's the football coordinator, academic coordinator, and you know, so these things can happen. So it's not just about giving our time and money, but also our brains to think about what we can do to support these things. And I think that this is one of the biggest challenges. How do we, I just was went to the zoo in the Bronx Zoo a couple weeks ago, okay? And I had gone to the Queen Zoo a couple, I might like zoos a lot, but I have grandchildren. I have 5 and 3-year-old grandchild. And so we had to watch it for a week. But if you pay one fee it costs like $200 for 4 or 5 people to go to the Bronx Zoo, and just for admission, it's a lot of money for, you know, for me, and it's for imagine the poor families can't afford it. But if you pay one fee, a little bit like $220, you have passes to all the New York facilities for kids for the year. What a great idea. And I was thinking about, you know, in terms of what you're talking about, Mel, in terms of facilities that people go to, can we find some ways to group tickets so that people can use the same pass, as the same families want to take their kids to all these different places, pay one fee? Is there some way we can give money and support a lot of people, let's say in one sector that we care about, as opposed to trying to figure out which one is the right one? So I really think the idea of collaboration and getting smart about this can be very, very powerful. The room is open for a while if you want to hang out, talk to each other. I know that we didn't really have time for questions, but I'm going to honor Mickey, who's one of our leaders in the community. You were waving your hand out there, Mickey.
The reason is that no one has talked about their board of directors today. And I have a burning question, and that it's two parts. You can pick which one you want to talk about. But
Can you say who you are, by the way?
Mickey Katzpeck, and I'm a biotech business consultant and professionally but retired. I'm the co-founder of the Women's Center of Southeast Michigan and have been on the board chair twice, and so just most recently been off the board, but I'm still chairing their Legacy Pledge Fund campaign, so I'm involved. But my question is, what is the biggest, what is it that you really expect from your board of directors, and what is the biggest challenge you have dealing with your board of directors?
I have an amazing board, and that takes work. I would say the biggest, I was talking about my board earlier in terms of it's my job to inspire them. I mean, I consider myself as the leader of the organization. I have a responsibility to my board, and they have a responsibility to me to support me in the visions that we bring forward with the resources that we have. The biggest challenge, I think, is finding board members who are extremely talented that have the time to sit face-to-face and having meetings. On the flip side, the joy of the board that I have is that they're constantly connecting me to new people and new resources and new ideas. And that is critical, I think, in my work, is that I not stay siloed and that I'm constantly in front of new people, new ideas, and engaging people and them serving as ambassadors for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. I hope I answered your question. Great, thank you.
We're going to, again, I'd like people to stay. If people want to talk to Doug, to Steve and I about participating in the group, let us know. There's lots of resources in the room. So thank you all for coming. I want to thank Bill Hall for videotaping this. And Bill, this will be available next week, right, for us to. So I think it'd be a great thing to go through with your staff and tell them about this. And with the board, I think this would be a great stimulator for events. You're looking for a job, right? What are you looking for? Come on, stand up. I don't try to do this to provide. Anybody else looking for a job right now? You still looking? What are you looking for?
I apologize. I want to respect your time. Just to give you an idea, so I'm a veteran. I spent 9 years in the military. I was in human intelligence. If you don't know what that means, it's basically getting information from people, hopefully in nice ways. So my first career was really people, right? And then with technology, sort of a passion. And then I got out of the military and I wanted to do something else, and so I went into technology. And then to get some more credentials, I came back and I just graduated in 2016 from Michigan Engineering. I have an electrical engineering degree, and I do software development now. I'm really passionate about education and people, and really bridging that gap between technology and people to solve problems and enable people to solve their own problems and to do what they're good at, right?
Elliot's your man.
She's talking about silos, right? So I'm like a one-person development, security, and operations team. Nobody in my chain has any technology background at all. They figured out what I could do, and they just turned me loose. And so I started making some projects to enable people to get some better information so they can make decisions. And the people that I was doing this for, their background, they used to be a union job, now they're not, and there's a lot of layoffs, and they're like, oh, you're trying to take our jobs. And I tried to explain to them.
What are you looking for?
I want to not drive 2 hours a day to work. I want to be in and like senior development or like, leadership, hopefully. I'm getting a master's in cybersecurity and information insurance. I really have a good understanding of policy and leading people and organizations and helping them develop their, technology.
Your name?
Doug Roussel.
Spell it.
K-R-U-S-E-L-L, yeah.
So people can find it.
Can I just, real quick, I apologize. So that team, what I told them was, let me give you back 30% of your day so that you can spend your time doing what you're good at to show them your value. And now that I've done that, the company has actually stopped the layoffs in those departments because they realize that those people actually do provide a value. And so, when you talk about siloing, I think really you need to explain to people that, they need time to do what they're good at so that they can show their value. Anyway, sorry.
Okay,
I hope that was worth it. I apologize for
All right,
that.
thank you, no problem. All right, we'll see you. Next one is Ari, the founder of Zingerman, and one of the people who helped found Food Guys. June 28th, we'll be speaking about his new book. So, hope to see you there.